But gearbox-wise, I think we should leave it because we won't know if I mess with it and cause a problem. We don't know whether that's going to be the problem I've caused or was that like it before.
Right now, in a quiet garage tucked away in Leicester, a man you may have never heard of is sitting on a contract that could permanently change the automotive industry. Bugatti executives are reportedly losing sleep. Lawyers are working through the night. And one of the biggest streaming platforms on the entire planet has just signed a deal that has every luxury car maker in the world watching with genuine fear. The Netflix bombshell that has Bugatti sweating. Industry insiders are now confirming what felt impossible only a few weeks ago. Netflix has reportedly signed Matt Armstrong to one of the largest content deals in modern automotive history. The number being whispered in production circles sits at around $30 million. That figure alone is enough to make your jaw drop. But the real shock is who that money is being paid to and what it represents for one of the most exclusive car brands on the planet. Matt Armstrong is not a celebrity. He is not a Hollywood face. He is a working-class lad from the English Midlands who learned how to fix cars in his father Tony's garage. And right now, Netflix is reportedly preparing to put its entire Bugatti rebuild saga in front of nearly 300 million subscribers across the globe. The timing of this announcement is not random at all. It comes just as Matt Armstrong's wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pour Sport, the same car that Bugatti themselves declared a total loss, finally fired up and drove under its own power for the first time. The footage of that moment went viral within hours. Comment sections exploded across every automotive platform. Major outlets scrambled to cover it. And somewhere in a Los Angeles boardroom, Netflix executives reportedly recognized exactly what kind of story they were looking at. But here is the part that nobody saw coming. Sources close to the project are now claiming that Bugatti is doing everything in its corporate power to stop this documentary from being released. Phone calls have allegedly been made at the highest levels. Pressure has reportedly been applied through Volkswagen Group channels. And the reason Bugatti is panicking is not that the documentary will embarrass them with a few funny moments. It is because this film could permanently change how the world sees luxury car manufacturers and their relationship with the very people who pay millions to own their cars. If you are watching this and wondering whether a single YouTube series really has the power to shake an entire global industry, you need to understand what actually happened in that garage in Leicester. The streaming giant that smelled blood in the water. Netflix did not become the most powerful entertainment company in the world by chasing safe stories. They built their empire on finding the one narrative that nobody else dared to touch. Tiger King was not supposed to work. Drive to Survive was supposed to be a niche racing show. Making a Murderer was meant for a small documentary audience. Each of those projects became a cultural earthquake because Netflix understood something fundamental about modern audiences. People want to watch a David fight a Goliath. They want to see ordinary humans take on systems that were built to keep them out. And right now, sitting in their development slate, Netflix has found the most cinematic version of that story they have ever encountered in the automotive world. Think about what the Matt Armstrong story actually offers from a producer's perspective. You have a billion-pound luxury brand publicly humiliating a single owner on the world stage. You have a manufacturer locking the very identity number of a car so no parts can be sold for it anywhere in the world. You have a chief executive personally getting involved in social media battles. You have a working-class hero with cameras already rolling, capturing every single twist of the saga. And you have an ending that has not even been written yet, because the car is still being completed in real time. The figure of $30 million sounds enormous on paper. But to put that into proper perspective, Netflix reportedly spent more than $500 million producing The Crown across all of its seasons. a documentary series about a hypercar rebuild that has already captured millions of viewers organically, is, in Netflix's financial reality, a relatively modest investment with potentially massive returns. What nobody outside Bugatti's boardroom knows yet is whether the brand will actually try to legally block the documentary from streaming. And before any of that drama gets resolved, you need to understand the moment that started absolutely everything. The moment a Miami content creator made a phone call that changed the entire industry forever. The phone call from Miami that started the storm. It was during the middle of 2025 when a Miami-based content creator named Alex Gonzalez made a decision that nobody around him understood. One of 60 Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, wrapped in a custom purple finish inspired by a Lamborghini paint code, had just been involved in a serious crash. He had rear-ended a small Japanese K truck somewhere in the Miami area. The airbags deployed instantly. The carbon fiber monocoque suffered visible structural damage. The front of one of the rarest cars on Earth was completely destroyed. When Bugatti flew an expert all the way from Paris to assess the damage, the verdict was brutal and immediate. The car was a total loss, beyond economic repair. The factory quote came in at around $1.7 million just to bring the car back to original specification. For most owners, that would have been the end of the story. Alex Gonzalez took the insurance payout, walked away, and let his pride and joy disappear into the salvage system forever. But Alex did something nobody expected him to do. He went to the Copart auction, the same auction where his own car had been listed, and he bought it back. The price he reportedly paid sat around $1.9 million. He owned his own wrecked Bugatti all over again. And then he picked up the phone and called the one person on the planet who he believed could pull off the impossible. The man on the other end of that call was watching from his workshop in Leicester. Matt Armstrong had built his entire career on rebuilding cars that the rest of the world had given up on. He had brought a wrecked Rolls-Royce Wraith belonging to footballer Marcus Rashford back from the dead. He had restored Bentleys, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, and even a Porsche that once belonged to Adam LZ. But this particular call was different from anything he had ever taken before in his life. A Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport is not just another supercar. It is one of the most technically complex production vehicles ever made anywhere. The factory had already declared the car beyond saving, and Bugatti themselves had a very specific opinion about anyone outside of their official network attempting to touch one of their machines. What Alex Gonzalez and Matt Armstrong did not realize as they finalized the deal was that the chief executive of Bugatti himself was about to step in personally to try and shut the entire project down before it even properly began. When the billionaire chief executive slid into his messages, Mate Rimac is not the type of executive who hides behind public relations teams. He is a Croatian engineer who built his first electric car by converting a battered old BMW E30 in his teenage garage. He is the founder of Rimac Automobili, the creator of the record-breaking Nevera hypercar. And since November of 2021, he has been the chief executive of Bugatti Rimac. His personal fortune is reported to sit somewhere between 2 billion euros and $4 billion, depending on which estimate you trust. When Matt Armstrong started posting footage of the disassembled Chiron Pur Sport in his Leicester workshop, the videos went absolutely viral within days. Millions of views poured in. Hundreds of thousands of comments flooded the comment sections. Automotive forums lit up with intense debate. And then something happened that nobody in the industry had ever genuinely seen before. The chief executive of Bugatti himself appeared in Matt Armstrong's direct messages on social media. The message that Mate Rimac reportedly sent has now been confirmed by multiple sources, including Carscoops. The opening line read, "Hey man, Bugatti CEO here. You cannot 3D print parts for a Bugatti. Your gearbox and carbon fiber monocoque are probably damaged, and those cannot be 3D printed, just like lights and body panels." He then offered to help Matt Armstrong complete the rebuild in the most cost-efficient way possible, but only if certain components were not replaced with aftermarket alternatives. What followed was one of the strangest public exchanges between a billion-pound brand and an independent creator that the automotive world has ever witnessed. Rimac posted a polished video on his own social channels addressing the entire situation directly. He explained that prices being quoted online for Bugatti parts were heavily inflated. He revealed that genuine headlights cost around $25,000 each, not the $150,000 that internet rumors were spreading wildly. He even showed a 3D printed suspension component that Bugatti itself uses in production vehicles. But Rimac also drew a very firm line in the sand for the world to see. He stated that splitting the chassis of a Bugatti Chiron required specialist equipment that only 2 facilities in the entire world possessed. He warned about the safety implications of using aftermarket parts in a car capable of reaching nearly 300 miles per hour. And he made absolutely clear that Bugatti would not be sending replacement components to a private garage in the English Midlands. What happened in Matt Armstrong's workshop over the following weeks would prove every single one of those warnings spectacularly wrong. The rebuild that made Bugatti look foolish. Matt Armstrong walked into his workshop and looked at one of the rarest hypercars on Earth, in pieces all around him. The official position from Bugatti was that this rebuild was effectively impossible without factory involvement. The official quote to repair the car had been $1.7 million. The chief executive himself had personally said that splitting the chassis required equipment only Bugatti possessed. And yet, what happened over the following months would become absolutely legendary in the automotive world. The first major obstacle was the chassis itself. Mate Rimac had stated publicly that separating the front tub from the rear drivetrain frame needed specialist tooling. When Matt Armstrong and his team actually started taking the car apart, they discovered something fascinating. The Bugatti was held together by a series of titanium bolts in a modular design. Disconnect every coolant line, every electrical connection, every fastener, and the car came apart cleanly. They reassembled the 2 halves later using 14 titanium bolts, a process that Matt Armstrong documented openly on camera. The transmission revealed the true scale of the hidden damage from the crash. A cast aluminum engine mount bracket between the engine and gearbox had completely failed during the impact. Replacing it through official channels was impossible because Bugatti had locked the vehicle identification number. So Matt Armstrong did something the factory genuinely did not expect. He had the damaged bracket 3D scanned, converted into a computer-aided design model, and then machined an entirely new replacement from solid aluminum that was arguably stronger than the original part. For the exhaust system, Matt Armstrong partnered with a company called Valvetronic Designs based in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. They scanned the original factory system, designed a custom 2.6XX pipe configuration, and fabricated the entire exhaust in-house from scratch. Industry sources are now confirming that this was the first ever aftermarket exhaust produced for the Chiron platform anywhere in the world. The sound when the engine eventually fired up was deeper and throatier than the factory original. The list of creative solutions kept getting more impressive. Custom radiators were built from scratch when Bugatti refused to supply replacements. Airbags were sourced from an Audi A3 because the part numbers were identical to the Bugatti units. A pinched coolant overflow pipe was repaired using a section of rigid brake hose, and when the team finally turned the key, the 8-liter quad turbocharged W16 engine roared back to life. Matt Armstrong drove the car for the first time without a windshield, grinning at the camera. But there was one revelation buried in a recent podcast interview that nobody saw coming. The interview that quietly exposed everything. When Matt Armstrong sat down with hosts Rob Moore and Carl Hartley on the Cars and Money podcast, viewers expected him to talk about engine specifications and rebuild techniques. What they got instead was the most revealing interview of the entire saga. The episode ran for almost a full hour, and within minutes, Matt Armstrong began dropping information that even his most loyal fans had never heard before. He began by describing his relationship with Mate Rimac in a way that completely contradicted the public war narrative everyone had been following online. It has become like a Lionel Messi and Ronaldo situation, he explained calmly. We are both into hypercars, but it is when the corporate world gets mixed into it that the stories start unfolding. That single quote suggested that whatever public conflict the internet had been watching, the real dynamic between the two men was far more respectful than anyone realized. Then came the moment that genuinely shook the comment sections worldwide. When asked about how he was sourcing parts despite the official Bugatti blacklist, Matt Armstrong leaned forward and said something that contradicted everything Bugatti had publicly stated about exclusivity. "I can tell you where to get the part for a Bugatti," he said with a smile. "It is from a Volkswagen Passat. I have them on my desk. I will send them down." The hosts laughed, but the implication was enormous. Many components on a multi-million-pound hypercar are shared with mainstream Volkswagen Group cars that cost a tiny fraction of the price. But the most explosive revelation came when Matt Armstrong was asked about his personal theory regarding why Bugatti had taken such a hard line publicly. He paused, chose his words carefully, and said, "I do think that there is someone else behind his words, because I do think it is strange how the tone has changed." He stopped short of naming anyone specifically by name, but the suggestion was unmistakably clear. Someone inside Bugatti, beyond Mate Rimac himself, had reportedly been pulling strings to make this rebuild project as difficult as humanly possible. Carl Hartley, who has spent decades in the supercar dealer industry, pushed back gently on Matt Armstrong's position. He defended Bugatti by saying the brand simply could not afford the brand risk. The headline would be, "Bugatti Crash Injures Family of 4, he warned ominously. That is not good for their brand image at all. Matt Armstrong nodded thoughtfully, but his answer was simple and direct. "The only reason I am able to buy these cars is that they are crashed," he said. And what came next would turn this entire conversation into the foundation for the biggest deal of his career. Why Bugatti cannot afford this documentary to air. The reason Bugatti is reportedly scrambling has very little to do with one wrecked Chiron Pure Sport sitting in a Leicester garage. The reason Bugatti is panicking is because of what this documentary represents for an entire global movement that has been quietly building for years now. Right to repair is no longer a niche policy debate happening in committee rooms. It is a tidal wave that is already reshaping how every major manufacturer interacts with their customers worldwide. In Europe, the Right to Repair Directive officially became law in July of 2024, with member states required to apply it from the 31st day of July in 2026. That is just a matter of months away. In the United States, the state of Maine passed sweeping right to repair legislation in 2025. The Federal Trade Commission has already taken legal action against John Deere for restricting farmers from fixing their own tractors. Apple, Google, and Samsung have all launched do-it-yourself repair programs under regulatory pressure. The legal landscape is shifting fast. A Netflix documentary that puts the Matt Armstrong story in front of nearly 300 million subscribers globally would not just be entertainment for a casual audience. It would be the single most cinematic argument for right to repair that has ever been made anywhere. The moment a grandmother in Ohio watches a documentary about a billion-dollar car company locking a vehicle identification number to stop an owner from fixing his own property, Bugatti becomes the villain in a story that has absolutely nothing to do with horsepower or hypercars. There is also a deeper layer here that the wider public has not fully grasped just yet. Matt Armstrong's previous Bugatti Veyron rebuild revealed something fascinating to fans who were paying close attention. He bypassed a rumored $25,000 service quote by sourcing parts that were actually shared with a humble Volkswagen Lupo. The total cost reportedly came in at around $1,600 instead. A similar precedent exists in the story of a man named Mark McCann, who bought a Mansory-tuned Veyron with a broken gearbox. Bugatti told him the sealed transmission could only be replaced at a cost of around $300,000. An independent Dutch engineer rebuilt it for closer to $27,000. The pattern is now genuinely undeniable. If this story shook you the way it shook the entire automotive world, drop your thoughts in the comments below and tell me whether you think Matt Armstrong should take the Netflix deal or walk away from it.